Have you ever looked up at your skylight and wondered, is that a beautiful feature or is it a ticking time bomb? If that thought has ever crossed your mind, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to dig into an incredibly helpful guide from Focus on Construction that really breaks down everything you need to know about handling skylight issues.
So, how does a skylight let you know it's in trouble? Well, long before you have a waterfall in your living room, it usually sends out these little clues, these little warning signs. The trick is just knowing what to look for.
And the guide is super clear on this. It points out a few unmistakable signs that really you should pay attention to right away.
It's honestly amazing how often these things get overlooked. You know, those little water stains, the occasional drip, or even some moldy spots. These aren't just cosmetic issues, you guys. Think of them as your skylight's alarm system, and catching them early can be the difference between a simple fix and some really serious damage. Okay, so you've spotted one of those warning signs. The next step is not to panic. It's to play detective. We've got to figure out what's actually going on up there. First things first, it really helps to know what kind of skylight you're even dealing with. A simple, fixed one that doesn't open? It's going to have different potential problems than, say, a vented one that does. The guide points out that just identifying your type can help you narrow down the cause of the problem a whole lot faster.
And here is a huge insight from the guide. Instinctively, we all want to blame the glass for a leak, right? But the real culprit, way more often than not, is this component you might not have even heard of. It's called flashing. I absolutely love this way of thinking about it. Imagine the flashing is the moat around your castle. It's this dedicated barrier, and its whole job is to guide water safely away from the skylight's edges. So if that barrier gets breached, well, that's when you get leaks.
Now, of course, it isn't always the flashing. You could also be dealing with cracks from something hitting the roof, or even just from wild temperature swings. Condensation is another big one, and that's usually a sign of poor insulation. And hey, sometimes it's just old age and the materials start to break down. These are really the main things a pro is going to look for.
So once you have an idea of what's wrong, you arrive at the big fork in the road every homeowner has to face. Can we fix this thing, or is it time for a full-on replacement?
And a huge factor in that decision is just age. A typical skylight is built to last about 15 to 20 years. So if yours is getting up there in age and it's starting to have issues, pouring money into a repair might not be the smartest long-term play. The guide gives us this really logical breakdown. Look, if the damage is pretty minor and the skylight is still relatively new, yeah, a repair makes total sense. But if you're looking at extensive damage on an old, inefficient unit, replacement is almost always going to be the better choice, especially if the cost to repair it starts creeping up close to the price of a new one.
And the numbers really help put it all in perspective. You know, a simple reseal can be pretty affordable, but you can see how quickly that cost jumps up when you start talking about replacing the glass or the whole unit. This is a great little reference when you're trying to weigh your options. All right, you've made the decision, repair or replace. Now comes what is arguably the most critical step of this whole process, finding the right person for the job.
And let me tell you, this is not a job for just any handyman. The guide is really adamant about this. You want to look for a contractor who is fully licensed and insured, ideally someone who's even certified by the skylight manufacturers and who can point to a list of happy clients. This isn't just a checklist, it's your protection.
So when you get a contractor on the phone, have these questions ready to go. A true professional will have zero problems answering them, and getting clarity on the warranty, the cost, and the timeline before any work begins is the best way to avoid major headaches later.
So let's pull back the curtain on what a professional repair actually involves, and just as important, how you can try to prevent needing another one for a long, long time. A quality repair is a methodical process. A pro is going to start by protecting your home, then they'll carefully remove the failed parts, clean that whole area up really well, and then install new high-grade materials. Oh, and that last step, a water test to make sure the seal is perfect, that is absolutely non-negotiable. This quote from the guide really drives home the stakes. We are not just talking about a cosmetic issue here. A leaking skylight can actually compromise the structure of your roof and lead to unhealthy mold growth. It is a problem that only gets worse and more expensive the longer you let it go.
But the good news is, you're not totally powerless here. The guide suggests these really simple maintenance tasks. Just keeping the area clear of leaves and debris, doing a quick visual check for cracks, and trimming back any overhanging tree branches. These little things can dramatically extend your skylight's life.
So, after all of this, what's the one thing that it all boils down to? What is the single most important takeaway that can protect your home and your investment? It really is this simple.
Be proactive. A small, regular checkup, whether you do it yourself or you hire a pro to do it once a year, is the absolute best way to prevent a massive, expensive headache down the road. It's truly the difference between maintenance and disaster.